I was tagged in this story on Twitter from an account called First Them News, and basically to give you an overview of what First Them News is, they're basically an account that talks about, I guess you can say white on white crime. They talk about a lot of white on white crime that doesn't get reported in the news the way it should because, you know, if it's not a black person, quote unquote, committing black on black crime, it's not going to make headlines, even if the story is that heinous. And this is a story right here that is just absolutely appalling, disturbing, disgusting, deplorable. It's a bunch of things rolled into one. So this guy right here, his name is Shaun Patrick French, and back in 2018, he basically developed a relationship with this 14-year-old girl. When in actuality, he was supposed to be developing a relationship with the mother, but he ended up developing a relationship with this girl. And when the girl decided to, quote unquote, end the relationship, he got enraged and brutally murdered her. And he just recently pled guilty to the crime in which he has committed. And it was the crime he admitted guilt to was called aggravated murder. And this is coming out of Utah, by the way. So Bailey Bagshaw was on the phone with her mother when she returned home from school on May 7, 2018 to find Shaun Patrick French at her family's house. French admitted waiting alone for her inside where he stabbed her and slit her throat. French, aged 26, entered the guilty plea Wednesday in Salt Lake City's 3rd District Court, part of the plea bargain with prosecutors. In exchange, the Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office will not seek the death penalty and agreed that remaining charges against French will be dismissed. Now look at that. Him pleading guilty to this particular crime in which he committed means he will not get the death penalty, and whatever other charges he got are pretty much dismissed. He's only now charged with this one charge. Now, I don't even know at what degree this would be. Like, to me, it sounds like it would be 1st degree because it sounds like to me he had to have planned this. But then again, they might get 2nd degree because it said that she came and broke up with him, and then that's when he did it. But I don't know. The plea deal stipulates French will spend life in prison, okay, without possibility of parole. So that pretty much is what's going to happen with him. Prosecutor Richard Pearson said Bailey's family approved of the agreement. In a statement of facts supporting his guilty plea, French's defense attorney Michael Misner said his client knowingly caused Bailey's death without justification and to prevent her from testifying or to prevent evidence from being used. Misner said his client began a sexual relationship with Bailey when she was 14 and it continued on and off for over a year. When the girl broke up with him in March, he tried to persuade her to get back together, even though he knew her age. Now, let's not forget, this is Utah we're talking about here, the Mormon state, where this kind of activity is known to happen. I'm not talking about the murder of someone because of this, but I'm talking about these grown ass creeps, both the men and the women, messing with these kids. It says Bailey's family informed French he was no longer welcome at their home where he had lived for a time, but French refused to accept the breakup, Misner said, and the family called police. The defendant learned he was about to be reported, got in his car, and drove back to Utah. In order to silence the girl, he waited with a knife in her house and attacked her, nearly decapitating her when she arrived home. Now, listening to that, I think, yeah, that 1st degree should have been up there because that sounds definitely premeditated. When he left the house, he tracked blood out the door, discarding the knife in her backyard. Investigators said French had harassed Bailey online after their relationship ended. Before her death, he had a friend create a Facebook account that was then used to send intimate pictures of Bailey to her mother. Shauna Bagshaw has said her daughter loved her 2 pet dogs and dreamed of someday training others for therapy or to help with search and rescue efforts. 4 years before her death, Bailey's father died of liver failure. She had inherited his love of bands AC/DC, Kiss, and Nirvana. She also was excited to become an aunt to a baby niece, Bagshaw said. On Wednesday, a shackled French wore a yellow jail uniform and glasses, replying, "Guilty, Your Honor," when the judge asked for his plea. Before entering his plea on Wednesday, French said he had reviewed a plea from his defense attorney, but there were some things he didn't agree with. He said he wanted to go forward nevertheless. Your Honor, to be honest, it's either this or the death penalty, he said. At the urging of Judge Paul Parker, French and his lawyer left the courtroom to review the paperwork. They crossed out one sentence with details about the murder. In the courtroom, French asked how a jury in a death penalty case could ever be impartial if they must be open to approving capital punishment for a defendant. Parker said those jurors must be committed to weighing facts and evidence and not to a certain outcome. French paused again to talk with Misner about the possible sentence he may face if he were to go to trial compared to the plea agreement. This is the only thing to do, he said when the judge asked if the guilty plea was in his best interest. It's either this or die. Sounds to me like the guy has accepted his fate and didn't really care if he went to prison for life or if he got the death penalty. But just hearing that, they probably gonna put him on suicide watch, because that just sounds like a guy who's ready to end his life right now for what he know. At least he knows what he did was wrong. Because some people, excuse me, won't even admit that, and he know he did what he did was wrong. You developed a relationship with a 14-year-old girl, whether she agreed to want to be in this quote-unquote relationship with you or not. The fact of the matter is, as an adult, you should have been the one to end whatever it is y'all had going on before it really got that far. And then when she quote-unquote ended it, then you became a stalker. And that's probably why she ended it, because you were starting to do other behavior besides already being a creep and messing with a 14-year-old child. And then you went the distance and just up and killed her. But I also put some of this responsibility on her mother for allowing this guy to just come into their home. It's like you just let random people just come into your life. This reminds me of the story where this woman met this guy on, Facebook, and then he just invited her to her home thinking that he was in a relationship with her, but he was really out there molesting her daughter and let her daughter sleep on the couch with the guy. I remember that one vividly. I don't know what it is with some of these parents wanting to try to develop these friendships and these relationships with these random people, and then they come into their lives and then they mess with their kids. Like, that's probably the outlet that they needed, because maybe the parents told them they had children. And that's like a new wave right there. You find out the parent, maybe a single parent, they probably haven't dated in a while, they have a child, and then you find out how old the child is, and then that's when you make your move. And then you disguise it that you want to be with them, but you really want to be with their child. Because I've seen and heard about this and talked about it on a few occasions. So that's what it just appears like to me. But yeah, this guy is definitely sick in the head in more ways than one. One, for wanting to develop and have developed a relationship with this child, then killing the child when the child ended it. And like I said, the only thing I can give him credit for is that he has come to accept his fate and for what he did, and hopefully that's most likely what he will receive. If they're not going to give him the death penalty, which it sounds like they're not going for, definitely just lock his ass up for the rest of his life.